Good evening. The Ranter is back to go into yet another rambling diatribe with the news of the day. Now, I had a whole video recorded over an hour for me going over the topic that I was going to go over, and force majeure, a file corrupted on me and was not able to fully import it over to the file folder, which I send them to YouTube. So I decided to forego all that and redo it. Now I'm going to try to do a little bit more discipline in my timing, so it won't be over an hour by this thing. So while that is going, we will have a discussion upon what I consider is the inadvertent third part of my degeneration of our politics. The first one I did on Democrats. The second one I did, which admittedly was a little bit longer, was on the Republicans. But now, I thought about it the last few days, and given the stuff that I've seen over social media and various articles, I'm now going to do the third installment of this concerning the people themselves. Now, what I mean by that is that it reminds me of something that George Carlin says. Now, I do invoke George Carlin fairly frequently these days. I loved his comedy, but it always made you think. And as I said in the last video that I mentioned him in, is that one of the best quotations about him was that inside every cynic is a disappointed idealist. And I kind of know how that feels these days. One of the things he said on his many HBO specials is, of all the things that he complains about, he doesn't complain about politicians too much. In fact, I dare say the majority of his HBO specials, you won't even hear him mention a politician's name. Those few times you do, like he mentions Reagan, he mentions Dan Quayle, mentions George Bush, then George Bush Jr., and Bill Clinton. Without any favoritism, without preferring one or the other, because to him, all of them is government, and all government is essentially shit, that he has seen over the decades of how the government, no matter whose regime is in power, be it Democrat or Republican, there's always some little loophole, something to screw the people over for the benefits of those few, usually the business interests and so forth. But in this instance, he said he didn't really complain about politicians, even though people claim that politicians suck. And then he asked, well, where did these politicians come from? They didn't pass through a membrane from a different reality and landed from the sky. They came from American homes, American families, American churches, American communities, and were brought up with American values and American education. And so maybe something around here else sucks. Besides just politicians, maybe it's the people. Yeah, I'll try to put that on a bumper sticker or make that into a slogan. Now, why I bring this up is that I've been seeing a lot of these really tinfoil things coming out of Republicans, certain Republicans. The last few days, I've been seeing Twitter being blitzed by various personalities on the Republican side, be it pundits or politicians, all just saturating it with crap on Biden and recession and this and that. Oh, by the way, Trump did 18 holes on a golf course. Isn't he manly? And then from there, I saw an article concerning the campaigns in Arizona for Senate, Congress, etc., and how the Republicans themselves are sniping at each other on saying that they're rigging each other's elections, or they're screwing them over. They're One claimed that one candidate in their name sent a rotary call on people at 2:30 in the morning to tell them to vote for this guy, so trying to lay the blame on this guy for the rotary calls and all this other shit. So I hear all this and what I see on Twitter, and it forces me to ask, is this what people want? Is this what we are here in our politics about? Like I had said before, that these days politics and reality as a whole is all perception. That you don't need facts, you don't need figures, you don't need to verify, you just need to say it. And that's enough for certain people. I lament over the loss of responsible people on both the Democrats and Republicans who will actually come out and give you as best possible truth, or at least factual points as to what they want to go for when they go into office. But we don't even get that anymore. Not really. I mean, you'll get the general stuff that you expect Democrats to say, or you'll expect Republicans to say, you know, the glad-handing type shit. But you don't hear any specific goals of what they want to achieve other than what the party line is. And unfortunately, as pertaining to that, it seems to be we want to make sure we either regress ourselves back to a point where whatever offended us is no longer present, or we are going to try to codify things that were either removed by the courts, or codify and enshrine certain things that has not been removed, but the clues and the writings on the wall that might actually come to pass unless they try to protect it. But to them, the only way you're going to possibly protect it is to vote us in, or vote us to keep our control or increase our seats to do so. You know, certainly there is a pragmatic point to that, especially on the Democratic side, where their majority is razor thin in the Senate and not much better in the House. People claim or complain about Biden not being able to do anything. Well, yeah, when you don't have the majorities in Congress that is required in order to make things pass without certain massive degrees of watering down whatever you're doing, there is going to be no progress to be made. But it's disingenuous for anyone on the Republican side, especially, to be pointing the fingers and blaming him on that, when it is them themselves are purposely trying to make these issues not better, all for the sake of politics. Look no further than that whole issue, the whole vote concerning baby formula. You know, for those few weeks when baby formula was scarce and prices went up and it was in demand, and a measure came out that could help ease this demand, and so many Republicans voted against it, giving bullshit reasons about Biden, when in reality, regardless of what they say their motivation is, they are depriving families, children, of baby formula. This is the pro-life crowd, remember that. So it's disingenuous to go and blame Biden for that. There's plenty of other things to blame Biden for. But what we're missing in this is the inspiration and inspiring. At least on the Democratic side. The Republicans are totally inspired by one thing and one thing only: Donald Trump. And that is galling and sad, and this is that the Republican establishment is so craven and fearful of losing the fan base Trump has, or feeling their wrath, that they have to continue to glad hand and to feel themselves beholden to him, which is what he wants people to be anyway. He wants anyone around him who are friendly to him to be of some service to him, to be beholden to them for their livelihoods, be it political or financial, so that he can ensure and demand and compel loyalty, regardless of what acts they do or what acts he does that they have to cover up for. Crying and whining about investigations concerning him. Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. It's a political hit job. That's what that is. Even though they're, just seething and just waiting to take over in the midterms, so that they proudly have already produced says, "So we're going to investigate Biden. Yeah, we'll investigate Biden. We'll investigate Hunter Biden. We'll do this. We'll do that." But that won't be a political hit job. No. Bullshit. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And as I said in the last video concerning investigations, do it. If you actually have something that is legit and you want to investigate, then do it. Hunter Biden's already getting investigated by the DOJ. My answer to that? Good. Good. Because I'm not fearful of investigations, of however it turns out, because wrongdoing, whoever is doing it, either has to be confirmed and then dealt with, or proven to be false and have to be acknowledged. This tap dancing around the concept of investigations, which side is actually doing it? Which side is using every appeal process on the planet, getting his gerbil underlings to say that they can't speak about anything they talk about because that's privilege, a privilege that doesn't exist. Because that privilege exists for the White House, and he's no longer an occupant of the White House. But somehow we're still going to allow that to be the thing, right? So I looked through all this, and the behaviors, as I said on the onset of the video, and it boggles the mind that all this drama, all this behavior, all this tinfoil and conspiracy theories, and somehow the Republicans, throughout all this stuff, is expected to win in the midterms. When Roe went down, I had made the operated assumption that that would light a fire under people, because we have heard multiple times, over and over again, that the people in support of Roe, support of the right to choose, is in the majority in this country. But then I read this article from CNN discussing various polling, and they noticed that those who were pro-Roe are saying that they're not feeling up to voting in as big majorities that they were, because it was something along the lines of 70% plus of the American people that is for Roe. But when it comes to the numbers of people that will be voting for the Democrats, or who consider themselves pro-Roe, are they going to vote? 56%. That's a bit down. I wonder if this is a kind of like depressionary response, similar to whenever you hear about when stocks rise and fall in the stock market, and the brokers who hear some turn of phrase over some stock or an economic forecast that doesn't seem to sound good or look good, and some tragedy or scandal that happens, and all of a sudden the stocks plummet. Is it plummeting over some economic science, forecast, or mathematics? Maybe. But is it also plummeting because people get discouraged and get depressed, so they get fearful of their own portfolio, shall we say, and they start sell, and stocks fall, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for them that the things that they were fearful of gets confirmed by their own actions because they were discouraged. Yeah, and it seems like voters, if voters take a hit, or at least it's strange to say, at least on the Democratic side, because I keep seeing the Republican side is so lockstep. If they were feeling that depression, that human apprehension, they're not going to show it. But you take the hit. You keep going. Is it that you feel like because of what happened with Roe, or because how the trend is going in the midterms, that you don't think it's worth it? It is worth it. Because it's no longer just Roe here we're talking about here. There's other things that are going to be on the chopping block that has been encouraged because of how Roe went down. We already saw that from Clarence Thomas' tweet that they were going to look into other things, including gay marriage. We heard that from Ted Cruz, who was eagerly waiting to be in the majority so they can go after that. Democrats rushed to try to codify gay marriage, and they passed in the House, but a big chunk of the Republicans voted against it. Some people are surprised by that. I'm not surprised by it. Because we've seen this years and years and years and years and years. The opposition, hostility towards the concept of gay marriage. See how Mitt Romney was so outraged when gay marriage was enshrined by the Supreme Court, when Justice Roberts sided with that. It was a betrayal. If people are worried and gets apathetic about it, and then they just lose the interest of fighting anymore. And I wonder about that. I wonder that maybe maybe in a weird way that is a solution for people, that maybe apathy is the solution. I tend to feel like, voting is our responsibility, and it is one of the things that shows that we do have influence in our body politic. Regardless of the lights, the sounds, the animation of the politicians or their associates in the media to try to urge you one direction or another, to light a fire under you, to piss you off, or to scare you, or demonize the other side, or for fear of demonizing the other, as we've seen Republicans do on pretty much every election cycle that's been going by for at least 20 years. But down deep all that, down deep, when you look past special interests, you look past the political establishment, look past donation contributions, lobbyists, you go underneath all the political activities that influences politicians go one way or the other way. and try to inflame your senses. And down deep, those who are responsible for that is you. You and me. All of us as citizens, and how we handle our votes. Now, when I talk about the people, I am adding myself into that. So don't claim that I'm like scolding anybody in how they manage to vote, because I too are to blame for this. Because in the last election cycle, I can say that my motivations into voting Joe Biden in were not the best motivations. All right. Joe Biden didn't fill me with any inspiration. He's not capturing my imagination on anything. You look back at the history of Joe Biden, of what he did in the 70s, for the political game it required and the compromise, he sided with racists for the busing issue. And if it wasn't just him just signing on that because it was a bipartisan bullshit bill, that would be one thing. But then he verbalized it. He verbalized his support about it because of him claiming that he didn't want to have his children, on a bus going into the jungle. The fuck is that? And then the crime bill. We've been rehashing this over and over again. There's a reason for that. Whereas in the 90s, whatever you wanted to say about the crime bill, about any tangible positives, or so somehow spin in a positive light about it, that Joe Biden was involved with, that the Clintons were involved with, no matter how well you can turn a phrase and say that this is going after, no, this is just going after the rampant of drug use and drug dealings and this and that and the violence coming from drug dealing. Yeah, that's great. But then you also threw out terms like super predator. This legislation gave police and others the license to racially profile. You helped the prison system become a monetary industry. Because more people get arrested, that seems to be profit for prisons. Draconian sentences for light bullshit drug use. I mean, there's one thing where a drug dealer is violent, commits violence, hurts somebody, kills somebody. That's one thing entirely. But someone who's just in possession, and they needs to go away because of that, and you only follow them because of the color of their skin pigmentation. Oh, sir, your tail light is out. Oh, look at that. Oh, now we get to search you. Get out of the car. Oh, Biden is involved in that. And why I say that we bring this up is because when other people go through the politics over the years, and some things of their past are brought up, they try to atone for it. They try to apologize for it. They try to put a spin on it in some way, one way or other, how they will regret their actions, especially when it's no longer the 20th century and it's now the 21st century, and when our sensibilities are a little bit skewed, a little bit different. Biden didn't do any of that. I'm not saying that he's proud of what he's doing, but he's not addressing it. So what leads you to the imagination of that all that was in the past and he just doesn't give a damn. It's another part of this fucking apathy. So no, he doesn't inspire me for shit. And his actions or inactions at the border, regardless of what Republicans want to say about it now, or saying how much of a humanitarian crisis this is, and the DC is in trouble now because they're sending migrants over there and they better open up the DC Army. All this Republican propaganda spin that they've been shitting on in Twitter. Majority of stuff Biden is doing at the border was what Trump was doing. Now you're all saying hashtag Trump was right all along because Biden is continuing what Trump is doing. Oh? Because Biden isn't doing anything different. There's not really hypocrisy. Other than the fact that he ran against what Trump was doing and he's still doing it. I recognize that hypocrisy and I say, fuck you for that. But, again, voted for him. Didn't want to. He wasn't my third choice. Wasn't even my fourth choice. In the grand scheme of things, I wanted Amy Klobuchar, or Bernie Sanders, or Elizabeth Warren, or Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Voted for Bernie in the primary. I did that in 2020. I did that in 2016. Because out of everybody on the field, he still, at his age, was able to capture the imagination of having the credentials and the jacket of the things that he'd done in his past to say he was legit upon what he wanted to do policy-wise. He laid things out policy-wise, which is pretty great. And we didn't have to deal with empty slogans and nonsense and just demonizing, oh, Trump is over there, we better vote against that. But the establishment screwed that over, so we had to have Biden, and no choice from our perspective, because it was either Biden or Trump, and it's not a good motivation to vote for Biden. It isn't, because for all the reasons I just gave, that it's not inspiring anything. I did it to vote against Trump. When you think about it, that last election, everyone voted for Trump. Or at the very least, the reason everyone voted was Trump. For or against. Roughly the vote count of 160 million people voted because of Trump. For Trump, against Trump. Not voted for the country, not voted for the economy, not voted to get us some type of responsible leadership concerning COVID. Not voting concerns our foreign matters of us still having troops in foreign lands. And the other machinations going on, all of our social, our infrastructure. No. It was to keep Trump in office or to get rid of Trump. And why this is a problem is that is as far as certain people thought. Which is, again, why I keep going back to whenever they say there's election fraud concerning that election. If it was so much election fraud, then why didn't that fraud continue to down ballot? Because you know what really moves policy? Having a robust Senate, a robust House in the majorities. Then you can move things along. Then you can see things proceed. But that didn't happen. And it is galling when you think about it that whatever was going to happen, people still voted for Biden over Trump, but they didn't vote to make sure or secure that he had the ability to change, shape, mold, push policy. They lame ducked him. Is there some accomplishments that we can say Biden did? Yeah. But we can say that he made good on the first presidential promise of making sure 100 million people got the shot in the arm for the vaccines. That's on him. Another good thing. Biden actually got an infrastructure bill passed. That's kind of major. Given a lot of places in the world, or not in the world, in our country rather, that our bridges and roads are crumbling without assistance because people would rather talk about infrastructure and have infrastructure weeks and not do a fucking thing about it and then blame the other side when things don't happen. Blame it on scandal. Oh, they're too busy doing that, so I can't possibly do anything about the infrastructure because I'm too busy saving my own ass. I was glad to hear that somebody is stepping up. I don't know anything about this guy, but somebody apparently is stepping up for the 2024 to oppose Biden on the Democratic side. I'm going to have to research this guy. And I'm also glad to hear that there are former Republicans and Democrats that are trying to put together another party. I don't know what that's going to be called, but apparently Andrew Yang is a part of it, so I'm kind of curious about that. Because our current configuration and how we deal with our politics is not working. And it's almost designed not to work. We are going from one side to the other side. No fucking compromise. Nothing in the middle. All the bills go flying. Initiatives are taken up by the middle, but there ain't gonna be any middle anymore. So saith the Pearl Jam. And he was right back in the fucking early 90s. He was right, because look at what we are now. You get a bipartisan bill passed, it's like pass a champagne, because wow, that's like 1 in 10 on anything that does anything in Congress or the Senate. And that 1 to 10 becomes 1 to 5 if whatever passes in the House actually passes in the Senate. Then you really pass out the champagne on that. You got too many people on the Republican and on the Democratic side, far left or far right, or too busy wanting to get out on the news cameras, news shows, make their sound bites, flail, get people pissed off in order for them to vote for whatever they want them to vote for, or whoever they want them to vote for. But that's it. That is the limit of what they want to do in terms of work. Marjorie Taylor Greene has a podcast. She's a congresswoman. She doesn't have a fucking job. That's not enough of a job. She needs to have a podcast? Really? The politicians who are hanging it on Twitter as if they're Trump. Little time's waiting. So when I talk about the people and of all this thing I'm getting into, trying to land the plane here, so to speak, is why I'm saying the people in this video is that, again, when you clear the haze away, it is us. It is us in how we're voting and what we are trying to vote for and vote against. Most of the time we're voting against the other person as opposed to voting for who we're voting for. And what is our motivations? Where are the responsible people who have policy that they want to back, and hopefully the person that they're supposed to be representing them is going to back those policies? Where are the questioning on that, on what we want to do in terms of what do we want to see our representatives go out and do for us, for the American people? Not swinging for the party line, but swinging for the voters. And it is regrettable that we don't quite see too many people worrying about that. I posted two questions on Middle America, which is the political group that I'm a part of, that I am in. And I asked the questions of, for the Republican side and the Democrat side, what do you want to see accomplished if one side hits a majority or the other side gets a greater majority? And they all gave really good answers and very thoughtful answers for one side and the other side, and I'm very, very happy that they did so. But, you don't hear that kind of responsible, this is the thing that we're wanting. We're too busy talking about, fucking Biden or fucking Trump or whatever, or the demonizing or the other or this or that or transgender, oh scary, they're in the bathroom because it's election season. And we got to scare people to vote our way. Both sides do this. Republicans do it a bit more. Let's admit to that. But Democrats, you better vote for us. You better vote for us. not for anything tangible that we can do for you, but if you don't vote for us, they're going to take over. And then there goes gay marriage. Forget about codifying Roe v. Wade, because that's not going to happen. And the more that you don't vote on the state level, more states are going to go strongly red, and any of those heartbeat bills, they're going to add a little caveat saying that no woman can cross the state line. Isn't that scary? Isn't that... You better vote for us. That's just as bad, when you think about it, as, oh, you better vote for us because we're all for border security and the caravan is coming. Or anything else that is the demonizing of the week. There's a transgender person. I'm now over my time, but it's my video, so I'll do whatever the fuck I want. Thank you. Because I'm ranting. One of the final points I want to make on this, especially on the demonizing part, where you're demonizing migrants, demonizing the other, no matter what demographic the other is, and then going after teachers, going after public education. I was publicly educated. I'm somebody who loves history, world history, United States history. I love learning about it in class. I learning about it outside of class. I went and found books. And I told the teachers about, various facts that they had no idea about. People who say that teachers are indoctrinating their children in a certain political way, one way or another, that must not have been happening in the 90s when I was in high school then, because we were too busy trying to just learn the root words and learn just a little bit of the events on a particular chapter so that we take the test and then we move on to another chapter, which could be in a completely different point in history or location in history, depending upon if it's world history. So we didn't have time to be indoctrinated one way or another on what political correctness or whatever. I've known teachers, I've dated teachers. I've seen teachers who had to go buy their own school supplies when they should have it, provided by it, but there's no budget for such things. So I've actually walked into like little teacher supply stores with one teacher or another teacher and watching them buy stuff for their kids that they teach. Any of these people you want to claim is indoctrinating anyone, you better bring some evidence other than just rhetoric. But not going to bring evidence, because this is no longer the age in our politics of evidence or facts or verifying. It's just saying it, right? No better example than the breadcrumb trail we saw how we're demonizing public education. First, oh no. We heard from this guy, from this guy, from this girl, from this guy, from this guy, somewhere in social media land, that they're teaching critical race theory in grade school. Critical race theory. You know that study that is only taught at graduate level in law school. Yeah. That complicated study is being taught to little Timmy in the 4th grade. Something super awful. Well, what's critical race theory? I don't know, but it's super awful. So we're teaching American history, and it's thinking about American history involving like slavery and civil rights. Oh, critical race theory. All right, so you go from that as that basis, and people are allowing that to exist in the lexicon. So then it's like, oh, we better look at the libraries. We better look at the libraries, because if they're teaching, they're not teaching, but if they're teaching critical race theory, something must be going on in the libraries. Oh! There are books in there. Books concerning the LGBTQ LGBT community. Oh no. Graphic and sexually explicit books concerning human basic tolerance and respect of different orientations and gender identity. Somehow that's pornographic. Yeah, okay. Same thing as critical race theory. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's happening. Well, if there's these books in there, we better ban the books. We better burn the books because I don't want my child to be looking at any of these books. So then you go, oh, well, if that's happening in the libraries, what's happening in the classroom? What are these teachers teaching? You mean they're teaching basic human respect of other people who are different? They must be grooming them. They're grooming children. See, that's where we go, don't we? Especially in election season, to go that far into demonizing. And then these are the same people that want teachers armed. I don't know where bullshit... I don't know if you have a list of bullshit and you just don't look at your notes upon which bullshit you're going for. That's funny. Land the plane, land the plane. So I ask you, what are you looking to accomplish here with your votes? I'm not asking for motivation. Frankly, I tend to think that everyone's vote is their own and is no one's business. You gotta ask yourself, what are you looking for? If you're just there to vote to protect Donald Trump, like make sure Republicans there so that they can stop all these investigations because those are scary, and you don't want Don to go through that for some nebulous reason, but you certainly want Joe Biden to go through that and his son to go through that. There's some sort of aha moment where Biden met with Hunter Biden's business associates when he was vice president. Yeah. And Trump met with his... Now, doesn't Trump meet his own children's business associates because his children actually work for him, so therefore they're his business associates? But if all you're doing is wanting to investigate because that is a political hit you want to do, the same thing you're whining about happening to Trump, then that is just... we're just going to make this a joke. We're just going to admit that the American experiment of democracy, the representative democracy of our republic, is a joke. As I said in the last video, if Donald Trump becomes president again, after everything he's done, not only as president, how unqualified and disqualified of a piece of shit he is in it, and his actions or inactions on January 6th, all to try to secure him remaining president. If he somehow gets back on the ballot, runs and wins, that's the end of the United States and the American experiment of our democracy. It will no longer be what it was from 1789 to 2024. It will be something completely new, completely different. Oh, it will be disguised as business as usual. But in the end, it's just proving that it doesn't matter what people do. It doesn't matter evidence. It doesn't matter facts. It doesn't matter verification. Perception is reality. That's it. Someone you support says something, that's enough for you. You don't need to be proven. It doesn't need that. You don't need evidence. You don't need things to be right or wrong. Just said. It's enough. That is decadence and that is decline. And if that's not fought, then that's apathy. And again, as I said earlier, maybe in a depressed kind of way, apathy is a solution. Certainly people can be happier that way, that they're not dealing with this shit. Like, they're not in the trenches, they're not fighting, they're not arguing, they're not debating. They don't want to worry about compromise, they don't want to worry about any of this. They just pull themselves back and go have a sandwich. And maybe it is a solution, as I said. Maybe just give up. Give it up. There's other things going on in the world. You don't have to deal with politics. So you're sitting back, let's say 6 months after the midterms, maybe a year. How the midterms goes down in one direction, how big of a swing that is. And then you're going out with your friends. And two of your friends, Bob and Steve, they're married. They're in a loving, committed relationship. They have a little girl that they adopted, teaching her good values. There's no static. Nothing's wrong. And then a stroke of the pen and a majority vote. Their loving, undeniable married relationship nullified, gone. The benefits that comes from being married, the legal benefits, the civil, secular benefits, disappears. No longer valid. No longer recognized. And then, I don't know, weeks, months, maybe less, maybe more, their little girl, let's call her Abigail. Now people are wondering that, this girl, what horrors is she living through, being a child of two gay men? Are they grooming her? So Child Services takes her away. Years go by. Bob or Steve gets injured, gets sick, is in a hospital. Who was once his married spouse will not be able to see him in his last moments. And he dies alone. And you hear all this, and you go, Jesus Christ, that's awful. How did this happen? How did this happen? How, indeed, did this happen? Maybe apathy isn't the answer after all. I've been thinking of doing a post-Roe video, which I'm going to do at some point, because the job's not done for y'all pro-lifers. And I'm only talking about those who are politically pro-life, not true pro-life people. It's the people that I know that are good people, that actually give a shit about the family of the little child and the mother beyond, and wants to see them thrive. No, I'm talking about those who thinks, oh, well, we held that person down for 9 months and compelled them to give birth. Job well done. We can go home now. What? Baby formula? Healthcare? Some sort of compensational benefit concerning us compelling this birth to happen? That's not our problem. It's whatever. Just there's charities. Go join a bake sale. That's not our problem. So, job's not done yet, and we're going to discuss that at a later date. But for now, the Ranter rant, because the urge to rant was rising, especially more so since the video got corrupted and was able to record it. I'll see you later.